Hello everyone and welcome back to the good stuff. We are continuing Paul Morphy's 1858 simultaneous exhibition in Paris, and this is the fourth game we're showing from the exhibition. He already won 3 of them very nicely, and here his opponent is a gentleman we know nothing about, Bernard C. Bierwirth, and we know nothing about him and we do not have a photo of him. So as usual, we are honoring him by wearing a hoodie. And like I said, it's so far I think Morphy's biggest challenge that we're showing in this simultaneous exhibition, but let's see if he was able to overcome such a challenge. So without further ado, let's check it out. Morphy with the white pieces opens with e4. We have e6 going for the French defense, d4, and now c6. Here, Oloventhal also mentions that for some reason, when opponents were playing against Morphy and Morphy was blindfolded, or rather playing without any actual sight of the board, because he was playing in one room and all of the other players, 8 of them, were playing in a different room, and they were either shouting moves or they were, sending someone to send Morphy the moves. So someone even asked this in the comment section of the previous video. No, Morphy did not see any of the boards of the players he was playing against. So here c6, sort of a measure of trying to confuse Morphy, but Morphy not really impressed by this. He just continues developing. We have bishop to d3 and now d5, striking in the center, but now Morphy happily captures because now his light square bishop comes alive, and black might have some developing issues regarding his development. So here c captures on d5 is what you should play, but here our good friend Bierwirth decides to go for e captures on d5, and it's already as of move 4 that this position has never been reached again. So let's see how Morphy continues. We have knight to f3, preparing to castle, and bishop to g4 now. Makes sense, you want to pin the knight. We have castles by Morphy, and bishop to d6 now. Black also going for some very rapid development. We have h3, and now bishop to h5. Not capturing, of course, with bishop to e3. Morphy always enjoyed developing his bishops to d3 and d3. This is like a signature Morphy developing move. Knight to d7, and now rook to e1, threatening some nasty discoveries. So knight to e7, blocking that, and now knight b to d2. All of the pieces are now developed. You now need to bring the queen into the game, connect rooks, and then figure out a game plan. And here, and a nice idea for black might be something like knight to f8 followed by knight to e6 could be a wonderful square for the knight. But here, Bierwirth decides to go for bishop captures on f3 instead. And okay, knight captures on f3 by Morphy and h6. He takes away the g5 square from Morphy's pieces, and okay, it does make sense to an extent. So here, queen d2, Morphy develops the queen, connects the rooks, and now queen to c7. Now black might castle kingside, he might castle queenside. So a lot of ideas here. Morphy strikes in the center. We have c4, very principled, as the opponent's king is still in the center of the board, and d captures on c4. We have bishop captures on c4, and now black needs to decide what to do. You can't very well remain in the center of the board. That's going to be too dangerous. Do you go kingside, do you go queenside, or what do you play here? Going for castles right away doesn't really work because Morphy just plays bishop captures on h6, and that's game. So that's out of the question. Problem is, if you go for this, queen captures, there's not much you can do to defend the position. For example, if bishop f4, you can attack the queen, just knight g5. Again, threatening checkmate. You don't care if black captures the knight. If bishop captures, you're going to capture with check, and now again, there is no good move here. Whatever you play, that's just it. If you play well, you could move the king, but it's without any real worth. Rook to e4, and this is now gonna result in checkmate. And of course, you could also block, but it's not actually blocking. Just queen captures, and the f pawn is pinned. So there's also that. So castling from this position, not the greatest of ideas, and black of course knows this. He could castle queenside, but then the f7 pawn is hanging, so also not maybe the greatest of ideas. So he plays f5, gets rid of the target on f7, and now just prepares to castle queenside. But now Morphy's position is well, something very well can be played here. So feel free to pause the video and try to find this mysterious move while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding such a wonderful idea. It's not an easy one to spot. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's knight to e5. And it seems like you're just offering some material to your opponent, but there's no good way to capture this. Problem is, if you go for knight captures on e5 and d captures, what do you play here with black? You can't very well move the bishop. There are no squares for the bishop. You would have to capture here and then just bishop c5. Attacks the bishop. If you move the bishop, then the knight will be under attack from the rook and the bishop. There really is no good move here. If rook d8, you go after the queen. There's always queen e2. You just introduce another attacker here. And if knight to g6, now kind of defending and guarding the f4 square twice, queen h5, and you just grab this knight. So this obviously will not work. The bishop pair is just they are quite the team, as you can imagine. So here, after this idea, this will not work. So after knight to e5, capturing with the knight doesn't work. Capturing with the bishop, however, might work, but it doesn't. D captures on e5, and again, there's no good way to capture the pawn. If you go for queen captures on e5, then just, well, pretty much whatever. You can just go bishop f4, and that's it. The queen has to move somewhere, and there's no good square. If queen here, then bishop here. You're going to lose the knight next, and that's it. And instead of this, if you don't go for this capture, if you go for a different capture, for example, knight captures on e5, not much better. Bishop f4 with a double attack on the knight, and if knight to g6 defending this and attacking the bishop, not a problem, just captures, and now whatever. Queen to d4, you're gonna lose this knight. That's game. So yeah, after this knight to e5, the knight can't very well be captured. So here we have castles queenside instead, now offering Morphy to go for knight f7, which is of course a great move. It attacks both of the rooks, and it's an easy material gain. But Morphy never goes for material, like almost never, and instead he goes for bishop to e6. He keeps the pressure on and says, I can always play this unless you want to capture my knight. And here, Birvirt decided to capture the knight, as there's nothing better here. So bishop captures was played, d captures, and now king to b8. This pawn is off limits yet again, because if you go for queen captures on e5, bishop f4, and again, there's no move for black. The bishop is nicely defended. You have to move the queen somewhere. All of these squares are taken. You have to play something. Then just queen d6 and queen to c7 will be checkmate. So out of the question. So after d captures on e5, we have king to b8 now unpinning, and now maybe the knight can capture. And now Morphy just plays queen to c3, again offering the e5 pawn, but again the e5 pawn cannot be captured, because if knight captures, just bishop f4. Now there's a triple attack on this knight here, and if you don't capture with the knight but rather with the queen, of course not much better. Bishop captures on a7 with check, picks up the queen now. Very, very good stuff. So here after queen to c3, knight to b6, now blocking this bishop's attack to the a7 pawn, and now Morphy just goes for queen to a3. And Morphy is always very, very skillful with the queen. He just finds all of the deadliest squares. Now the knight is paralyzed because queen captures on a7 would happen. And what do you play here? Morphy also has a passed e pawn that still cannot be captured. You can never capture this because there are too many discoveries just lurking. So here knight b to c8. Now the knight guards the a7 square. Of course you cannot eliminate it because then the other knight takes its place. So instead, after knight b to c8, we have rook a to c1, just bringing a rook to the nice semi-open c file. And now black says, all right, you don't have anything here on the queen side. I'm just going to start attacking you on the king side and go g5. So now Morphy doesn't want to meet f4 and be forced to move his bishop from this diagonal, so he plays f4 himself. G captures on f4, bishop captures, and now rook to d4, putting pressure on Morphy's bishop. Probably going for, if Morphy goes bishop e3, I'm going to go rook to e4, and then I'm going to go finally after this e5 pawn. If I can eliminate this, should be good for me. But instead, we have queen to e3 by Morphy. Now attacking the rook, and rook to e4 now, chasing the queen. Queen to f3, and now queen to b6 with check. We have king to h2, the king will be very safe there. And now Birwirth captures. We have rook captures, and the queen to b4 now. So what do you do here? There's pressure on the bishop. The rook on e1 is under attack. The b2 pawn is hanging. So how do you defend all of this? Rook to e2. This is what Morphy plays. Everything is now nicely defended. We have knight to g6 now with a double attack on the bishop here on f4, and Morphy just retreats. Bishop to d2, attacking the queen. So while you could capture on b2, then Morphy has a discovery. Bishop captures on h6, wins the h6 pawn with an attack on the queen. While it's playable, it doesn't really do all that much. So here queen to b5 is played, but now Morphy finally says, all right, you've played well, you've defended well, I wasn't able to completely crush you, so I have to resort, to the lowest possible way of winning, and that's by, grabbing material and winning the game, with that kind of an advantage, which for Morphy, I'm sure it wasn't easy. So Morphy played bishop captures on c8, now saying that, okay, if king captures, then I can eliminate this f5 pawn with check. I'm not going to win the knight because the rook on e2 is hanging, but after you move the king, I'm going to play queen e4 and then push the pass pawn to victory. So instead, rook captures on c8 was played, but now Morphy just goes for bishop captures on h6. And this is how you know you are a good chess player, when you force Morphy to grab a pawn and then decide the game via, via material. So he can feel definitely very good about himself. So here, rook back to h8, going after the bishop, now bishop g7. We have rook to h7, now bishop to f6, everything is nicely defended, and now this pass pawn is ready to march forward. We have rook to f7, now if e6, then we can capture the bishop here, so that's not a problem. But now Morphy just goes for queen to h5, and there are no more good moves for black. Black tried one thing. I'll also show another thing that black didn't try. If you go knight captures on e5, it seems like it's possible, but it's actually not, because just queen h8 check and that's it. Queen h8, for example, king here, and this will just be checkmate. The king has nowhere to go, the famous mating pattern that we've mentioned several times already. So here, after queen to h5, Morphy's opponent tried knight to f4 with a nice fork. The rook and the queen are under attack, but here it's actually just lost. Here Morphy played queen captures on f7, and it was in this position that his opponent, who we know nothing of, Bernard C. Birwirth, resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. Once you recapture the piece, it's just checkmate. Queen e8 check, king c7, and queen to d8 will be checkmate again. It's very interesting that Morphy even grabbed the rook, because you don't have to grab it. For example, the game could go on if Morphy plays queen captures here, and his opponent just plays something like, well, pawn here. Of course, black is still completely lost, but at least he could, make Morphy suffer for like maybe 20 more moves. But he didn't. After queen captures on f7, he just resigned the game. But you don't have to capture it. You can just play queen to h8 check, and it's checkmate right away. Either you first give up the rook, captures and checkmate on d8, or king to c7, and then this will just be checkmate. So this is a very, very rare case of Morphy not going for the quickest idea, for the instant kill. Well, also very, very nice to know this, that there are games when even Morphy was able to miss this, but okay, we can forgive him, as he did play all of the games blindfolded simultaneously. So yeah, that's the fourth game we were showing from the Paris simultaneous exhibition. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. And yeah, as you can see, most of these games are available also with annotation of our good friend Johann Jakob Löwenthal, as he really enjoyed analyzing Morphy's games, and also saying how Morphy, could have played better here, could have played better there. But then when he finally faced Morphy, we all know how that ended. If you don't, start the Morphy saga from the beginning, the first link in the description below. So that's the game. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I would like to thank Jack, Paul Hinermund, Edward Vivian, Milos Knežević, and David Kimura for your contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the Morphy saga, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.